what do you want to talk about regarding the Orlando game, Dave? Who ended up in a 1-1 draw, as we mentioned. What was your grade on our performance against a relatively good Orlando side, right? Like a decent
I think
team.
Orlando is a much better team. And, the question you can ask yourself is, why is Orlando a better team? Because they were terrible for years, right? In the last couple of years, they were pretty good. They made the playoffs, right? They won the U.S. Open Cup, right? And it's, you know what it is? I mean, they have a couple better players, but they've had, they had the Nanis of the world. They've had some other, designated players who were good or whatever. The difference is the coach, right? They finally got a really good coach, Oscar Pareja, and they're good. Going back to our argument about, how much does the coach matter? But this is a franchise that couldn't get in the playoffs for nothing. They get a coach who's routinely in the playoffs, and what's going to win? Is it the club that never gets in the playoffs, or the coach who always gets in the playoffs? It's the coach who always gets in the playoffs, gets them in the playoffs. So they're a much better team.
And I think they wanted it more in the first half at least.
Yeah. Well,
when do players not want it though? That's like this problem with like this whole intensity, urgency thing. It's not like these guys are going out there consistently like, I don't feel like playing soccer. I didn't like all that practice we put in this week. I'm not going to give it my all. That's the problem I have with a little bit of the narrative that Pineda continues to push as an excuse when the guys aren't up for it. They're not giving a little bit extra. Okay, that can happen from game to game.
Yep.
If you're coaching, if everything looks right in practice, which by all accounts it seems to, like people aren't.
He said they look intense in practice and then they fall flat in the game, which is hard to believe. Yeah. And then people say we don't have leadership. Hard to believe. It's kind of, to me, as a coach, that sounds like coach speak, right? That we just lack intensity. And
particularly in this last game, because you feel like we had 3 leaders on the team. I think Yakamaki started, right? So you got a leader in him just by the way he plays. Almada, kind of your silent star, who's using his skill. He didn't have a great game, or at least didn't stand out anyway. And then we had a surprise entry of Brad Guzan. Certainly wasn't expecting him to come back that fast, right?
Yeah. Well, we talk leadership, so the best team in the world right now by far is Man City, right?
Yeah.
Who's the leader on Man City?
You would probably say to some degree the keeper.
De Bruyne.
I think a lot of people would say De Bruyne. I think he's the captain, but he doesn't talk that much. He's kind of a silent leader. I think he's got leadership qualities.
Don't people all turn back to that keeper though and be like, he's at least
Ederson?
I mean,
he's balking a little bit, but he doesn't seem like he's the leader of that team.
Well, I mean, De Bruyne just is
when they had Vincent Kompany, it was very clear they had a classic leader. He wore the captain's armband. Everybody was like clearly afraid of him. But this team doesn't seem to me have any leader.
I would. They're
phenomenal.
It might be Ruben Diaz as well.
Ruben Diaz could be. I
feel like it's shared.
But Ruben Diaz could. He's the kind of player who could be, but he's sort of soft-spoken. You don't see him talking that much. Like, you'd be hard-pressed to name a leader on that team, and yet, oh my God, are they good?
Yeah.
Ed Gundogan.
Gundogan.
Yeah. But you're right. I think you're right. If you have a bunch of really good players,
good coach, good team.
Right. You don't necessarily need that one leader or couple leaders to be
Because, people say, it's hard to quantify leadership. But, I mean, when you need leadership is when things are going badly. Yeah. Need someone to drag you out of it, right? But obviously, Man City doesn't have things go badly very much. You don't really need a leader, right? And to be honest, if you would say, what does Atlanta United need a leader right now? Maybe, but it's not like things are going so badly. We're in the tank. We're out of the playoff spots. We haven't done, I think, really well.
I've had this conversation with like Mills or somebody back before around like I almost feel like you do need, whether it's with the band or not, somebody in the backfield to be the vocal captain on the field. I'm a little disappointed that I don't feel like I would love it to be Miles Robinson. I just don't think that's his persona. I think he likes to just lead with playing and letting his feet do the work. But, he doesn't bark at people. He's not screaming at people. Like when stuff goes wrong, you see Brad Guzan.
Guzan is clearly leading into the back.
Yeah.
And Guzan seems like he's really
and he always
smart.
has. He always has.
Right? He
Like,
seems to know where a lot of the problems are.
Did you see in the field he ran over to Pineda and was screaming at him?
Yeah, he
at
was
the
trying
beginning.
to tell him some things.
Yeah, well, that's not a good sign, Dave.
I think that Guzan could be a terrific coach.
Yeah.
He seems to have that in him, right? I
Yeah.
would be interested,
That's a good call there.
What do you think about my mom? Do you think she could be a good coach?
Yeah, of course.
Ugh, no. I would love to coach one day, but yeah, we'll see about
We've
that.
already got a contract, you and I.
Oh,
We're
that's
gonna
right.
coach.
That's
We've
right.
got to figure out the
And
time.
Dobbs too.
This
We're gonna do it.
podcast is eating up all our free time. I don't know how Dave does it. He's a man of many hobbies.
Oh, Coach Katz, what's one good coaching tip you could give? Just a random.
One good coaching tip. I mean, it starts with player evaluation, right? I
And-
mean, one thing that you can do as a coach, you got to be able to identify not just who are good players, but what are their individual talents or not, strengths and weaknesses, and put them in places that maximize their strengths and minimize their weaknesses.
Right. So unlike where Luis Araujo was, where you're complicating it with the inverted
Yeah.
winger, where you could have just simplified everything for him on this team,
Yeah.
played him out left, said, "Hey, superstar, really, just let's start with this. We're going to play it to you on your front foot, and your job is to go down in the corner and whip in an amazing cross."
It was interesting. After a while, one of the reporters asked Pineda and said, because there were a couple of moments where they switched and Araujo ended up on the left side and he looked really, really good. And one of the reporters said, did you do that on purpose? Would you think about doing that? And he said that Pineda said that, well, things aren't going so well for him at the moment. We want to keep him where he's comfortable.
I remember that.
But that seems to me crazy.
If he's comfortable there,
Like you're letting the player say, "Oh, that's where I'm comfortable, so I'm going to play there." You're the coach, right? I mean, and I'm not saying you override. Players do like to think this is what I am or whatever. But if you're a coach, you go to a player and be like, "Look, I think you could do better. I think this is your talent. These are the things that I would like to see from you, and I think we could maximize them from here. Why don't you try it?"
Yeah.
Do we have any intel on how Araujo played before he got over here? Like
He was inverted a little bit,
A
I
little
think,
bit?
in Leo. Yeah.
Okay.
That's where it's
Do you
come from.
guys think Luis Araujo would have made a difference on Saturday?
um,
No.
not a big one.
No.
No,
Yeah.
not a big one.
We got killed in the
could've-
midfield. I mean, they just won the territorial battle basically, and
What did you think
we
of the
couldn't
starting
create
lineup?
stuff. The starting lineup was close to our best
Yeah.
starting lineup.
I was
Right?
I was shocked. We had Hernandez was playing right fullback like I always wanted. In front of him was Lennon too, right? As I had kind of predicted.
Which I think will be the answer without
yeah.
Araujo, at least for now.
I agree. And then we had Miles and Parata, and then Gutman in the left fullback. Etienne was on the left.
Yep.
And then we had Sosa, Almada, and Josetu, not Noah Barra. Like we always said that he'll never play Ibarra and Sosa together. That would have been maybe the difference in our
That's
midfield.
the crazy thing, right?
That's our one nitpicky thing is have Ibarra in there versus
I think he's done
Josetu.
it once ever.
Yeah.
And I think he was sort of forced because so many people were hurt. He played them both.